This episode is brought to you by Audi. The road is calling. Embrace the thrill of the drive with the all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron. Featuring effortless power, serious acceleration, and advanced Audi tech. It's not just a new EV. It's a new way to experience driving. The all-new, fully electric Audi Q6 e-tron is here. The next chapter of Audi starts now.
Auto insurance can all seem the same until it comes time to use it. So don't get stuck paying more for less coverage. Switch to USAA Auto Insurance and you could start saving money in no time. Get a quote today. Restrictions apply.
USAA. Hello, it's Gareth. Welcome along to the Somewhere on Earth podcast. Today we have voices from Mumbai, from London and from Las Vegas. It is Tuesday, the 11th of March, and you are exceedingly welcome. Joining me today is the excellent Shavi Sachdev, which I think is, well, I know. I've been doing this podcast the whole time it's been running. I know this is the first time we've had you on, Shavi. So thank you very much for joining us. And you'd be our voice from Mumbai, wouldn't you? What do we need to know about you, Shavi? Welcome along.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. I'm a journalist. I have been my whole adult life. I generally cover science, the environment, sustainability, and tech from my part of the world. And you can hear me on lots of science programs and now Somewhere on Earth.
Lovely. Well, it's so nice to have you on board. And I hope this is the first of many shows that we're going to do together. In fact, I'm already going to ask you back for next week. Can you do that for our next edition?
I could probably do that.
Right, good. Booked in. There we are. Committed. I think that makes it contractual. It's on tape, as they say. Great. Lovely. Shavi, we'll hear from you as we go along. And coming up today, more on internet shutdowns for you. Yes, as new figures emerge about the scale of the abuse. And one country in particular stands out as being rather naughty, having recently topped the shutdown chart for 6 years in a row. The thing is, this country is a democracy, and those who can get online, well, they have pretty censorship-free access. So a bit counterintuitive in a way, really. We'll reveal who that country is, what that country is, in just a moment. And we'll tell you about the glasses that can help to restore vision, at least some usable vision, to those with macular degeneration. That's our dose of tech for good from the Consumer Electronics Show, and it's all right here on the Somewhere on Earth podcast. First, though, how India is a world leader in many good things in tech, like innovation, space, education in science and engineering and so on. But on the not-so-good list, the world's largest democracy has recently led the world for 6 years straight in internet shutdowns. Between 2016 and 2023, there were 771 such events. And the digital rights group, the Freedom Law Centre India, says that the criteria for imposing switch-offs are too seldom transparent. Finally, in the last year, India's neighbour, Myanmar, has taken the top spot with 6 perpetrators, led predominantly by the military regime, imposing 85 shutdowns. India, by the way, clocked up 84, so it wasn't far behind. Let's start on this with you then. Producer Anya, producer and editor of Somewhere on Earth. And you've been going through the data as well, haven't you, Anya?
Yes, so this is the Access Now report, Emboldened Defenders, Endangered Communities, Internet Shutdowns in 2024. So obviously, no surprises, worst year on record for internet shutdowns. 296 in 54 countries. Now, this is up from the previous high in 2022, a 35% increase. So compared to 40 countries before. Now, you had 7 countries that were new offenders: Comoros, El Salvador, France, Guinea-Bissau, Malaysia, Mauritius and Thailand imposed internet shutdowns for the first time. But the majority of internet shutdowns were experienced by people in 4 countries, Gareth. Now, obviously, you've mentioned India, Myanmar. Then we also have Pakistan and Russia. They all lived through at least 203 shutdowns, 69% of the global total. The other things that the report highlights is that shutdowns have no borders. There was an alarming increase in cross-border shutdowns, with 25 implemented by 8 offenders, impacting people in 13 countries. And also there's been a surge in platform blocks. A record-breaking total of 71 were recorded in 35 countries, with X, formerly Twitter, being the most blocked platform in 2024.
So what's been the main trigger for these shutdowns?
Well, obviously, conflict has unfortunately remained the lead trigger for the second year running, with at least 103 conflicted-related shutdowns, and these have been documented in 11 countries: Ethiopia, Bahrain, Chad, India, Israel, Myanmar, Pakistan, Palestine, Russia, Sudan, and Ukraine. Other leading triggers for shutdowns were protests. There were 74 shutdowns because of protests. Exams, so when national exams happened, there were 16 shutdowns in total. And elections, there were 12 shutdowns there.
Oh, happy days. Not really. But a bit of a weird question here. Is there any good news in this whole scenario, Anya?
Well, Access Now say there is good news. The African Commission on Human and People's Rights adopted a landmark resolution that urges members to not shut down the internet during elections. Authorities in Mauritius rescinded an order to ban social media during their election, and world leaders committed to refrain from internet shutdowns and measures that target internet access at the 2024 UN Summit of the Future.
All right. So I gather there's actually an incredibly long list of countries where there were shutdowns in 2024. You've mentioned the really big players, as it were, but yes, there were others.
I've just highlighted on our script document. We won't read that because we'll be here till next Tuesday, but you can have a look at those at your leisure. We'll put up the Access Now link to the report.
Look them up. But on the league table, I can see here Myanmar 85, India 84. So we've given those stats already. Pakistan 21. And Shavi, what do you make of all this? Because you are in India. What's it like for you? Is this a regular thing for you? Maybe not so much in Mumbai, I'm guessing, but just tell me what it looks like for you and other citizens in the great country of India.
So Mumbai and Delhi are fairly exempt from this, but I have been caught in this when I've been traveling. And it's ridiculous because you lose access to anything. I mean, forget like shopping online, but you can't do any work. You can't get data from your phone, Wi-Fi from your network, and it's supposed to reduce the escalation of violence, or in our case, we are also looking at exams, just like Japan, funnily enough, that have led to closures. So conflict, which is communal violence and clashes, have resulted in 23 internet shutdowns, 41 protests, 5 exams, and then 4 times because of elections. We've had no data or internet. And the odd thing is that while it's supposed to at source lock off anybody from inciting violence or sharing exam papers or answers beforehand, it also makes it more difficult to document atrocities, especially if they're committed against minorities. And it's a pretty double-edged sword. Also, there's no study or documentation about whether it actually is effective. So we don't know if affecting and stopping work, education, health. You can't web check in for a flight. You can't access your medical data. You can't really do anything. You can't log in. You can't check in at a hotel. Is that helping? Or are we losing more because of that? So it's a tough one. And the Department of Telecommunication has been asked many times if they have conducted an impact assessment study, and they just blatantly keep saying no, and they haven't.
So just kind of digging their heels in, really, and very little evidence that makes any difference to the things they want these shutdowns to change, whereas we know that it's causing a whole lot of harm and disruption and chaos for everybody else.
That's right. And I think a lot of people have argued whether the internet is a basic human right. So there is a court order from our Supreme Court that we should have it, and that if internet shutdowns are to happen, they need to have a very transparent use case, and it needs to be judicious and short. But implementation on that is definitely sketchy.
Yeah. So last one on this, though. Do you get a sense of what just people are saying? I know you're in Mumbai, but you must speak to people all over India. Do people talk about, is this a big talking point? Because, in this country, if we kept having internet shutdowns, we would all, in the pubs, we would just go on about it the whole time, Is it similar in India, or are people just kind of resigned to them?
I feel like they are resigned to it. So I've been in Rajasthan when I've had internet shutdown. It affected my life in a big way. And maybe because I'm not used to it, I was really vocal about what an inconvenience it was. It was a nuisance. But other people I spoke to were annoyed, but they seemed to just take it in their stride. That year, Rajasthan had something like 135 days without internet. So, I think they were sort of immune to it in a way.
So given a whole load of data on this podcast, Anya just has, anything else really stand out to you from all that?
It was interesting to me that Myanmar and India were neck to neck in the highest number of shutdowns in the 80s. And then number 3 is Pakistan, but it's in the 20s. There is such a disparity between where we are, number 1 and number 2, and then the gap between them and number 3, Pakistan, which is just 21 days. So India and Myanmar seem to really be strong-arming the world with internet shutdowns.
Shavi, thanks so much. All right, now let's have some more tech for good for you now. We've been running this little kind of series really throughout the new year into 2025. We've been hearing from reporter Jez Donaldson, who's been at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. Let's check back in.
Hello, it's Jez Donaldson again with the next in my series of interviews with visionary leaders from CES 2025. Macular degeneration affects around 200 million people worldwide. The condition causes those affected to lose their eyesight gradually, starting with a dark patch right in the centre of vision and extending over time to complete blindness. I interviewed Neil Weinstock of Solid at CES on January the 9th, 2025. In the interview, Neil explains their incredible discovery about how the brain is able to assemble multiple images into one cohesive image, and how Solid has exploited this to bypass visual impairments like macular degeneration, restoring users' ability to read and interact with friends and family.
Hi, I'm Neil Weinstock. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Solid. Well, the brain functionality that we've identified is that when we send multiple separate in-focus images to disparate areas of the retina, as long as we coordinate them properly for point of view, the brain is able to perceive stereopsis automatically. In our demonstration systems here, we're showing 64 separate images per eye, and we create a full stereo image in each eye, as well as the two of them combined. The brain doesn't see the difference. It just sees a single stereo image. You get something like 90-95% of all your visual acuity typically through the fovea in the center of the retina, and yet we aim light at all these far areas, even to the edges of the retina, and it works. And part of the reason that it works, besides the construction of stereopsis, is that even though you have so few photoreceptors towards the edges of the field, there's an additive increase in resolution from each of these really separate displays showing on the eye. And just as your iPhone or your Samsung phone puts together the images from multiple cameras to make a single higher resolution image, your brain does that automatically. With no accommodation lag, it's just automatic.
Forgive me if I missed it, but I believe the first condition that you're looking to resolve is macular degeneration.
Yes. So the low-hanging fruit of something we can accomplish with this is if you have something that's blocking your field of view in some portion of the retina, you've still got overcoverage, and people see a full field image with good acuity anyway. And we've already done rigorous patient tests for macular degeneration, And except for a few subjects who had really total atrophy of the optic nerve and we can't help them, most people could read a scrambled word test over 10 times faster with our device, and many could read essentially infinitely faster because they can't read at all normally and could with our device. That's what we could measure with our crude Gen 1 prototype. And now that we have it in glasses, there's so much else we can do. I am sure that by the time we have our roughly beginning of 2026 software revolution out, we'll be 1,000 times better than we are now and give so many people who are now essentially blind for all purposes other than seeing some bit of fuzz, really some good vision. And that is so heartening to me. And also now we've already done onesie-twosie tests with people with glaucoma, optic neuritis, cone rod dystrophy, central cone dystrophy, detached retina, retinitis pigmentosa, some other issues, and had success with all of them. So we have great hopes for what we can do for a lot of people.
Can you describe what the glasses actually look like?
Yeah, they're going to look very much like kind of thick, normal eyeglasses. But the first generation glasses, which by the way we should have available this summer in limited quantity, that first generation glasses are not see-through to the outside world. You're looking at everything through 2 video cameras facing forward, video screen in front of each eye. It's definitely not meant for driving, not meant for walking around my neighborhood in Manhattan. It's meant for reading, watching TV, and interaction with people while you're in a room together or, in an intimate setting outdoors.
And what does your product development roadmap look like from here?
We want to get these out as big as we can. So obviously you're growing with a new product. And obviously it's more expensive than you'd like at first. And eventually you get it out there. And there's every reason that this can be eventually, in several years, in the price range of something that many, many people, at least in the developed countries, can afford. And we hope that there will be philanthropies and whoever else that help people get them. We're lucky in the United States. It's classified as a low vision aid, so we don't need FDA approval to go to market. We can just go to market, but we want to do it with the ultimate degree of credibility and the bona fides of the scientists and the doctors.
And you touched upon affordability a little while back. Do you have any idea of the costs that they're likely to?
Well, we've modeled things out to present to investors, but I don't want to go public with that because that'll change by the time we go public.
So where can listeners find out more?
Write into info@solid.com. Get on our mailing list. Please keep up with us. We'll keep you informed.
That's Neil Weinstock of Solid with the 3Ds, talking to Jez Donaldson with 1D at the beginning of Donaldson. Right, this is fascinating stuff, isn't it? Shavi, what do you make of it? Because this is a real issue, isn't it? Macular degeneration. For instance, my mother lives in a retirement community and a good 2 or 3 of her friends have macular degeneration, and it's a real worry for them and their families. Can you put it into context, a few numbers from where you are as well?
Sure. So I know globally, they mentioned it's more than 200 million people. In India, about 43 million people have macular degeneration. We have also a very vast socioeconomic gap and not that many facilities for people with any kind of disabilities. So people with vision impediment are actually invisible in our societies. They're not out there interacting. They have very limited options. And this could be really a game changer. Of course, if it's affordable.
Yeah, no, of course, absolutely. And what about the bigger issue of blindness, across lots of different categories of sight loss then? What do the numbers look like there?
So I did a story about diabetic retinopathy here, and India happens to have a very large global burden of diabetes. Something like 70 million Indians have diabetes, and 10 to 15% of those have retinopathy. So they start losing vision from the edges because of damage to the retinal nerve. And we're looking at maybe 7 million people with that kind of visual impairment as well. Plus, we have maybe 5 to 12 million people total who are considered blind. And this is a very large segment of the population, just in my part of the world, that could benefit from, okay, they won't be going for drives or long walks, but they could read, they could interact with people, be social. I think it could be really incredible.
For what we heard from that interview, though, this isn't going to be cheap, certainly not initially, so when they first get into if they do get into the product stage and out of prototype.
Yeah, well, maybe philanthropies or, like you said, or some kind of foundations will step in.
Well, it's encouraging, and it's nice to look at tech for good like that as well. So maybe a way to go, getting from prototype to market. But certainly,
it's nice that somebody's working on it.
Absolutely, and certainly Neil Weinstock sounding very confident about it as well. So lovely. Thank you very much for your company today, by the way, Shavi. Looking forward to next week.
It was my pleasure.
Already.
Yes, I'll be back.
Marvellous. So, Shavi's coming back next week. We want you as well to come back, dear listener. And between now and then, stay in touch with us, won't you? On WhatsApp, we are code 44 for the UK, 7486 329 484. Our email is hello@somewhereonearth.co. And you can find us across the socials, usually something like hashtag SOEP Tech will get you there, Soap Tech. And of course, don't forget, we are on the Evergreen Podcast Community Network, whatever. But you can find out a load of their podcasts, some really good ones out there as well. evergreenpodcast.com. And certainly when we first joined Evergreen, it just opened my world to a whole load of podcasts I'd never even heard of before, and now I listen to them, so that's lovely. Our production manager is Liz Tui. Our editor, you heard earlier on, is Anya Viktorovich, and I am Gareth. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Hi, everyone. It's Michael Calore, Director of Consumer Tech and Culture at Wired, here with my colleagues, senior writer Lauren Good.
Hello.
And Wired contributor Zoe Schiffer.
Hey, everyone.
We're here to tell you about our new podcast, Uncanny Valley, a show about the people, power, and influence of Silicon Valley.
Every week, we get together to talk about how technology and culture from the Valley is influencing our everyday lives.
We dig into questions like, will we ever get our privacy back? Is OpenAI for real? And how are Silicon Valley billionaires impacting U.S. elections?
The first episode of Uncanny Valley comes out on October 31st. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.